How's everyone doing? This is your boy, Lotharius Craig. This video is going to be straightforward and to the point. It might be a little longer than usual, but I'm going to get straight to it. It's going to be about the old world before the flood. What made things so different when it comes to sustaining life compared to now? I'm not going to go too much into supernatural stuff. It might be mentioned, but at the same time, I'm talking about literally the physical old world. What is so different than compared to now? We're talking about like the time of the dinosaurs, maybe even earlier than that. Basically a time which, of course, man may or may not have been around, and maybe an all. Of course, there's all kinds of theories. People are talking about, maybe there was a species of man that was around which was not created by the Lord, but maybe the little G's or whatever, and there's all kinds of stuff. And then it matters, but at the same time, it don't, because at this point, there's certain things we just ain't gonna know until we see the Lord, if you know what I'm talking about. This is about the physical scientific facts that I know could definitely be a factor on things. I'm not even talking about flat earth or anything. And maybe personally, I'm not one, a flat earther. Hell no, that's me. I'm just saying I've seen too much to see otherwise, what I'm talking about. So that's a matter of triviality in this case. But I'm going to say this. There were several things that were much different before known history today. There was a time that, of course, everyone knows about Pangea, all the continents being one supercontinent. That is definitely something was going on with that. There's definitely no doubt about that. You can see all the continents fit together like a puzzle almost. Even when I was a kid, I could see that. Of course, you have the fallen continents, supposedly like Mu, Atlantis, all that good jazz. And there's even, there's a big continent, I want to say, that's been under the sea for a while, right by Australia. So, this is real crazy stuff that could have caused this change. Now, I don't know. I think maybe there was possibly even more than one reset of the earth. Because the Lord being like, oh, hell no, I ain't dealing with this. It ain't working. So that's just neither here nor there at this point. It's important, but it's stuff that can't be proven or disproven. Well, I will tell you this. How could creatures get so massive, like dinosaurs, things like that back then, when it would be almost an impossibility now? Because gravity just seems to be so different. I'm not saying such creatures couldn't exist, but it would sure as hell seem counterproductive for something that massive to even be. Of course, you have legends like Mokle-Mbembe and things like that. And yes, it's possible, but it's just like, how could something like that stay hidden if you don't talk about it? And back then, they didn't have to worry about it. There's a reason for that. One of the big factors in how big something gets, gravity isn't one thing. That's a matter of debate one way or the other. Because our gravity, I don't think, is too much different than it was back then. And hell, you have massive creatures that could, the way they're built, they could probably handle the pull of the gravity on their bodies. Maybe not, but I'm thinking so. And the bones prove it anyway. Creatures like sauropods, massive dinosaurs like that, they were allowed to get so big back then because of oxygen. There was so much more oxygen in the air compared to now. You have to understand that. I want to say there was like it was a significant amount, maybe like 15% or more. Don't quote me exactly on that, because I'd be lying to say I know the exact amount, but I do know that it was a lot more than it is now. A lot. And you have to understand something. Creatures like that, they have specialized lungs, air sacs, things like that throughout their bodies. Fossil records prove this stuff. These creatures were designed for having the strain of such weight on their bodies. So you have to understand that right there. You're talking about creatures that were almost as big as a blue whale on land, That's crazy shit right there, dude. Just saying. So that was a big factor right there when it comes to old world kinds of affairs. When it came to that, many creatures were larger because of the fact they could have more oxygen in their lungs because of the quality of the air. And that it basically promoted growth, even with insects, which don't have lungs. They have to breathe through their skeleton. They have basically air holes, which they breathe through their exoskeleton. And of course, that ain't possible now. It's just something life like that can't be supported. But you used to have centipedes that would be as big as you. Hell, you had freaking dragonflies that were about as big as footballs or a hawk. Just big, weird stuff. You had roaches that were about as big as people, I think. Something out of like Kong Skull Island, just ridiculous stuff. But you have to take into account, again, the quality of the air was different. There was even There was a dude that did he had some fish, and he replicated the effects of like the oxygen and stuff that would be in the water at that period of time. Of course, for now, the fish grew gigantically, freakishly. I mean, it was just nuts. I was like, what the hell? They were like close to a third larger or even more than normal big fish like that. It was just insane. So that right there is a proven fact. Just going to leave it at that. So, how could this affect things to the now? Well, you got to think about this. This is where I kind of go into other territory. History has a habit of repeating itself. What the hell caused the flood? Well, so many people, there's so many cultures that say about, the gods or their, one god or whatever, or some type of entity or a deity getting fed up with how mankind was doing. And they put they were like, oh, hell no. We're basically putting this document in the shredder and we're starting up fresh pretty quick. With maybe a little bit of whoever was chosen to survive. Now, that's a matter of here or there. But I'm just going to say this. There was a reason for it to happen. What the hell could have caused so much chaos? All I know is this. Something happened and it was laid at the hands of us. What could we have done to have caused so much problems? Well, you got to think about this. Right now, I mean, do I believe in a lot of the bullshit they talk about global warming and all that crap? No. I think a lot of that is a bunch of hooey. But there is some fact about what they're talking about. Technology and labeling pollution, plastics and all kinds of crap like that that's really causing problems on this planet. That's truth. I mean, it's right out there for you to see. I think that maybe we were doing I think it was beyond that, though. I think we were not just debasing ourselves physically. I think we're debasing ourselves spiritually and doing things that, my point is, I just think we even back then had technology that we don't have now. But I'll tell you right now, I think we're heading there pretty quick for that reset to possibly happen again. Of course, in the Bible, it says it ain't going to be by water again. It's going to be more likely by I'm just saying, in the book of Revelation, it talks about things quite literally being burned in a lot of cases. And it's just something you really, of course, you have plague, famine, all kinds of stuff, war. I'm just saying, what caused that reset to happen? What caused the old world to go away? I think a lot of what we're doing now, and I don't care what your faith is, a lot of the bad behavior that we're doing is putting us right on that spot real quick, if you know what I'm talking about. There's other things I can go into when it comes to the old world. I think a lot of that has to do with certain things. Before the flood, what were we like back then? Physically, is what I'm talking about. Well, you got to understand, this is something which has fascinated me for a very long time. It definitely, I think, has to do with the physical effects of the spirits on our body compared to now, in a lot of ways. Human beings back then were, Adam lived for he lived for almost 1,000 years. People didn't quite reach 1,000, but they came pretty damn close. If you know what I'm talking about. People lived for centuries. Almost quasi-immortality here, if you know what I'm talking about. Of course, diseases and injuries and stuff like that would take someone out real quick. It's like now. But at the same time, you didn't have the aging that we have now. Why? Of course, there's some beliefs. I knew a dude, he was actually an employer of mine. Good kid. He was, how can I say this the best way? Excuse me here. He was I want to say he was a Jehovah's Witness, but it ain't mattering what he was. He had a lot of knowledge. And he was, of course, talking about the firmament, and people do discuss that quite a bit. There basically being like an extra layer of water and atmosphere around the earth that, of course, during the flood was brought down, and, there's radiation and stuff that affects aging, and that makes sense. So I definitely believe there was something with that, possibly. But at the same time, I think there were other things. Definitely that. But I also think there was environmental factors that, once everything happened, Daddy was like, this ain't going to happen no more. I personally believe maybe it was, a long life can be a benefit, make no mistake, but also at the same time, of course, our minds, I don't think now can handle it. Hell, you have dementia and Alzheimer's and all kinds of insane crap going on when you have people hitting, I'm just saying, much younger than 60, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think it would be viable now for us, but back then it probably was, because I don't think you had to worry about so much degeneration for whatever reason. I don't know what triggered that, but something did. That's all I'm going to say. I do believe it was connected to the flood. Because even in the book, it says that people were not allowed to live, I think, we on 120 something years at that point. He basically numbered the years, the Lord numbered the years which people could really live. Now, this video is going to be a little longer than usual because I have a lot to discuss on this. But I'm just going to say this. What exactly caused people to stop living so long? Like I said, environmental factors. I believe the atmosphere was one thing. And also, I think, again, there was some kind of protection back then. Maybe even before, like I said, there was probably many floods that could have happened. This may be further back. All I know is there was a certain time, and I believe our world there was beyond the ozone layer. I'm talking about like true protection that protected us from a lot of the harmful cosmic effects of, the space, which of course this planet's held in. And of course, I think that definitely has a factor in many things, or had a factor in many things. Of course, it seems to me also that the planet may have been smaller. Could be wrong on that. That's a matter of debate. But it seemed like the planet was much smaller, at least a little smaller than it is now, which may actually have a lot to do on certain things. But what I do know is this. Something changed. Something changed beyond what can even be imagined. Just going to leave it at that. Things changed so much that, honestly, I think we saw the old world, and it was right there in front of us, or we were transported like thousands upon thousands of years back in time. I think we'd probably, I'm not going to say we'd go nuts. I'm pretty sure we wouldn't. Humans have a very vibrant imagination anyway. But I think it would definitely be something that would definitely make us be like, oh, wow, beyond that. And I'm just saying, I think that technology back then also was a major factor in which we couldn't understand. What exactly is magic? I got a question for all y'all on that. Yes, of course, there is witchcraft, there is occultism. I'm not saying there ain't. There is. We have to understand. I'm talking about history. What exactly is history when it comes to relating to magic, or vice versa? Simple. If you put me with the cell phone, which I'm talking to you guys using the camera, right, and the microphone, all that good shit. If I went back, let's say, to medieval Europe, there's an example. It's the quickest example I can come up with. Or better yet, I went to Vlad Tepes, and I was like, hey, man, this is a phone. I can show it to you. Be like, oh, hell no, you're a witch. Okay, boys, get him looped up or get him that stick ready. Quick. My point is, they considered that magic back then. Or, of course, now, would be like, hey, this is normal everyday stuff. AI, another example, which I think is a great tool, but I think it's potentially very dangerous if we keep letting it go the way which such humans are very bad about doing, the way it is. Moving on from that, I think there was something to do with that too. I think there was some kind of intelligence that we were probably synced to, much more than we can imagine now. And I think they may have had a hand in the corruption which caused the Lord to say, oh, hell no, this has to be stopped now. I think there was something connecting us to the fallen ones, or what you want to call them, to each other. And the corruption, the wickedness spread very fast. It's like with social media now. People are so drawn into this fantasy. Believe me, I get it. Well, I've been role playing and doing all kinds of crazy stuff for years. I'm the last guy to judge here. But I also, maybe because of that, I observe, and I've never had the problem between differentiating what's here and what ain't. So my point is this, that we are slowly creating our own realm, almost a virtual realm in many ways. Like I said, social media is more of an experiment, but at the same time, it's kind of we're slowly being led there pretty quick. I would say a little too quick. And that kind of thing is definitely, I think, caused a lot of corruption, even now. Just the way people act. Of course, you have chaos and death and misery. Don't get me wrong, that ain't helping. Inflation ain't helping. That stuff is not helping. But there's other factors, which I think, I'm not saying this makes sense. With technology, I don't necessarily believe that we have more people behaving badly. We definitely do. I think people are just knowing more about it now because information happens like this now compared to the way, let's say, hell, even 10, 15 years ago. It's just how it is. And because of that, people respond quicker and they do things more, it's like waiting is a thing of the past. Things are so convenient. And of course, that's kind of, we're speeding up faster and faster and faster. So the kind of clock that's going to be hitting. I ain't knowing when or anything's going to be happening. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm no prophet. I don't know all this shit. But I do know this. Something's going to happen pretty quick. Just like I think caused the stuff that happened with the old world to no longer be the old world. That's my point. We're barreling to something. And I think technology back then, we may even recognize that. We might even consider it magic due to how advanced it was. Maybe it's some kind of super science. My point is this. It happened fast. So fast, I think. I want to say, when it comes to Noah, supposedly if I remember right, he was given a century to build that ark, which is 100 years, right? And he was given, like I said, it took him a while to build the damn thing. But I'll tell you right now, once it was built, it was over with. But at the same time, compared to, let's say, the millennia that people have been around before, 100 years, I mean, of course, it's beyond me or your lifetime. But at the same time, it's pretty quick. And I remember growing up in the 80s, the 90s. You didn't have what you have now. I mean, yeah, you had bad behavior and all that, and people being stupid and great and all in between. My point is this. Things have changed so fast. And, yeah, I'm only 44 going on 45. So you really have to really take these things into consideration. It's just crazy, man. Yeah, I know this video is a little longer, and I do apologize about that, but I figured this needed to be done. So that's one aspect. The technological aspect. I've talked about the physical differences between them, the creatures then and creatures now. And I'm not really sure who may have had a hand in creating such monsters back then. I think they were probably just part of the natural process of things, but I could be wrong. I mean, just some of the creatures back then are just so strange. I mean, especially the predators, man. My God. They were just, it's like something out of a horror movie. Especially hell, beyond T-Rex. I'm talking about big, massive, flesh-eating creatures that were just, like I said, they were efficient, too efficient. Almost, it's like I said, it's like something out of a movie. How crazy advanced these animals were. I'm not talking about intelligence. I mean, of course, they're animals. I'm talking about their abilities. I mean, it was like they were developed like hyper-developed. And of course, you had massive prey animals back then too, so that would make sense. But I'm getting off track. But I'm just saying, it fascinates me how different things have become compared to now. And how I think things will become in the future. I'll be honest, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at this. We've been doing a lot of tinkering with things we should not. Dealing with genetics, we know, believe me, I promise you this, you better believe, we know something, they're talking about something in the media, they've already done it. Don't ever kid yourself on that. So that's another thing, really take into consideration, what the hell are they trying to cook up behind closed doors? Like I said, predators back then were very advanced and extremely efficient. I'm wondering if there was some tinkering going on, I could be wrong. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to do the same thing if there was tinkering going on. I wouldn't be surprised, like with Dogman, Bigfoot, I'm not so sure. But Dogman, I had almost some positive about that there's something going on with that. I mean, it's such a creature. Like I said, nature is advanced animals to be very, very efficient at what they do in certain niches. I mean, hell, look at creatures I don't believe necessarily were engineered, like the Smilodon. I think because they're similar enough to big cats, and they were big cats, that I think that they were nature's way of handling larger prey. But at the same time, I'm just saying, man, I wouldn't be too surprised if people were, something like the Dogman might have been a naturally evolved creature, or might be a naturally evolved creature, but I'm just saying, there's something going on with that. That's all I'm going to say at that. There's something going on. Something like that is just too, anything's possible. But the more I think about it, of course, you have the supernatural aspects and demonic and all that. We already know this stuff. But again, there's something going on with that. That's all I'm gonna say. There's something going on with a lot of cryptids that are being seen. I'm wondering if them things didn't exactly start in nature. They started by human beings. Leave it at that. That's all for now. I figured this lengthy one would be worth the trouble for all the detail I'm putting into. I'm no expert on this stuff, but I figured I want you guys to think for yourselves. And I know a few things when it comes to this. I've studied it for years. Am I an expert? Hell no. Sorry about that. Am I an expert? Hell no. I never will be. I have no desire to be, because that's just a burden on the human soul that I don't think anyone could handle. You guys know what I do. I'm producer for Dark Waters Entertainment. You also know my email, westvic@iamdarkwaters.com, if you want to go ahead and leave me an encounter you've had or experience. You guys be blessed. You be safe.